Hey everyone, how's it going? I've been talking about making this video for a long time now, and that would be on some negotiating tips when you're going in to buy a new car at a dealership. I feel like I've gained some valuable advice from my experience in buying a car. This is the second car that I've purchased. I've been around other negotiations and helping other people out. And I'm not saying that I have all the answers, I don't. But I have some things that worked for me and other people that I wanted to share with the community. But more importantly, I also want the comments in this video to be us helping each other with more advice. You know, if there's something that I missed or if there's something that you disagree with, please make sure you explain why you disagree. So this is a really helpful video, both in the comments and in the content that I'm creating. So without further ado, let's get into it. The first thing you need to understand when going into a dealership is the salesman and the salesman's view on you. The salesman is trying to extract as much money as possible from you to give to the organization in profit. That doesn't necessarily make him a bad person. That's how businesses run. You need to make a profit to keep the lights on, to pay the bills, to pay the employees. It's okay that he's making a profit. You need to understand that first. And you can't go into it making the salesman your enemy. Really, the best thing to do is treat the salesman just like you would any other human being. They have a family usually, they have bills to pay, they have things that they like to do, and they need to get paid, and selling cars is what they do to make a living. So you need to be respectful, treat them as a human being, because a salesman's personality is competitive. So if you come in there trying to beat the salesman or outsmart them and you show them that initially aggressively, they're gonna push back. They're gonna wanna try to really get you on the sale. I find if you treat the salesman just like you'd treat... Nice, your car just cut me. We're in a double turn lane, car just came right over at me. So my advice to you, don't go in there with a bad negative mindset about the car salesman. You hear all the bad stories about them. Yeah, it sucks. It's unfortunate that the whole car sales community has that negativity cast on them, but a lot of times I feel like it's rightfully so. Be positive towards the car salesman. Another piece of advice I'd like to give you, and this is fairly common, but it's going to the dealership at the end of the month. But car dealerships have to buy an allotment of cars, and when they are sold these cars from the manufacturer, they have a quota that they need to hit. They are highly incentivized to move X amount of cars per month. If a dealership needs to sell 50 Ford Focuses, at the end of the month, if they're not at that number, they're gonna be highly incentivized to get you out. So they might be willing to lose a couple $100, maybe $1,000 on a sale to hit that number to get a big cash increase on the back end from the manufacturer. Another piece of advice would be to not be in a hurry. Let me give you an example. When I was buying my Focus ST, this sat on the lot at one dealership for several months. I went in there, I was ready to buy a car, but it was my first time where I was totally on my own purchasing my car. When I bought my Civic Si, I had my dad co-sign with me. So I had the comfort of, okay, he's done this before, like he knows what's going on, and it's okay. Now, obviously being totally on my own, paying for the car, it was just like, that's a lot of money to be putting down and buying a car for. So I just wasn't totally set on it. And when I went into the dealership, the car salesman was real like, hey, we gotta get this done, and I was like, hey, if he told me he had 3 buyers lined up for this Focus, why? So I go to him, well, why didn't you just sell it to one of them? And he really didn't have anything to say. And I said, look, if someone else is lined up to buy this car right now, I understand you need to make a sale, so make the sale. And he's like, well, but you're here right now, I want to give you the opportunity. It was just BS. Never be in a hurry. Listen, there are tons of cars out there spec to your liking. There are probably hundreds of this ST3 in Kona Blue with everything all across the country. So if I had to wait longer and go to a different dealership, one would pop up. It's not like it's a limited release car like a Subaru STI Type RA where they're only making 500 of them. Yes, that's going to be a car where you're not going to be able to move off MSRP, and once it goes, you're probably not going to see one again. This is a much different scenario. Now, it's still a performance car, it's an ST3, but it's a common performance car. It's just not as exclusive. Things are different when it is a special edition car. You know, it is what it is. There's only so many. So like I said, just be in no hurry. I left the dealership. This car sat there for another 2 months and was untouched. And I came and they told me that if I went to another dealership and tried to buy the car, they weren't going to sell it to him. Of course, 2 months later, I go to a different dealership. They immediately bought the car, transferred it over, and I bought it from a different dealership. So just don't, you know, take everything they say with a grain of salt, stick to your guns, and you should be fine. Now, something, you know, of all the negotiating videos I've seen on YouTube, one thing I haven't seen was to shop online. Do the online price first. I don't mean, you know, I know you can shop online, but go to the dealership website. And if the car you want is in stock, they will have a really aggressive price sometimes on the car. For example, this ST3 was listed at $28,815 on the site. So I took a screenshot of that with the lot number and VIN number of the car. That's very important. You should have both of those if you're gonna take this tactic. I went into the dealership and I acted like, I don't know, there's just this car in the parking lot that I want. I was like, here's the car I'm looking at. He's like, okay. He comes out, goes back to the manager, gets a price, comes back out. He wanted to sell me this Focus ST3 for, what was it, $36,000 out the door. There was a $1,000 alarm system they wanted to put on here. There was, the, you know, the Air's desert package with, it didn't even come with tint, which is crazy for Arizona. Usually cars come with tint out here. But it had nitrogen in the tires and some other BS. And I was like, well, I didn't ask for that, so take that off. Bing, 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 take all that off. And then I go, you know, I was online shopping and this car was priced at $28,815. And he was like, oh, he's like, it probably wasn't the same car. Here, handed him my phone, lot, VIN number, and he's like, oh, and you gotta understand, like, he came over to me with the paper and pen to sign off on that deal for $36,000. Imagine that. So I laughed. I told him, I'm like, this isn't a Focus RS, it's a Focus ST. And he's like, well, you know, it's a high-end demand car. Yeah, high-end demand. It sat on the lot for 2 months. You know what I mean? Like, it's a joke. I showed him that. He took it back to the manager. All of a sudden, the price dropped, what, $8,000 almost? $8,000 the price dropped just from me looking online, and they immediately honored that. So just pay attention to, you know, what's going on online, because that's generally a marketing price. So that's a price they want to get you to come into the dealership. So they got me to come into the dealership, but I also had the proof of what it was online, and that's a great deal on an ST3. I do have a subscriber that said, I'll put the comment right here. If you're watching this video, said I think he got it for an ST3 for $24,000 out the door. I honestly have a hard time believing that. So I would like you to send me the paperwork. If you could blank out any personal info you don't want me to see, so I could share that with everyone. I just don't see how you could get a brand new one for $24,000 out the door, but prove me wrong. I kind of briefly mentioned this earlier. Buying an in-stock car, the dealer is going to be much more incentivized to sell you a car that's in their stock. Again, they want to clear the cars off the lot. So search locally, search, you know, within a 250-mile radius. They're highly incentivized to move the cars off the lot. Also, while looking at the cars on the lot, you can play the card of, well, I didn't really want that color. And you can use that leverage to drive the price down even more. So maybe you wanted it in white, maybe you wanted it in blue, or maybe you actually want it in blue, say you wanted it in white. And just use any tactic you can in that sense to just continue to drive the price down. Another piece of advice I'd give you is, if you're not paying cash for the car, which most people generally are not, get approved by a credit union beforehand, or by your bank or whoever. Credit unions are known to give you great rates on car loans. I would suggest you go there over your bank. Banks are not really incentivized to get these, nor do they really want car loans. People will fail on those before they would on a home loan or something like that. So I would suggest you go to a credit union and see what you can get approved for. You can also see what the dealership will approve you for. Maybe the dealership will give you a better rate than a credit union or whoever. That can happen. I would say it's unlikely, but you never know. Now, when you sit down at the table to negotiate, you need to talk only about the real cash value of the car. If you go in there talking about, I want a $350 payment, I made this mistake because I was looking at the WRX STI as well. And I went in and made the mistake of saying I want a $350 payment. That was like my goal at the time. That was what I was comfortable with paying for my income at the time. That opens the gates up for them to get creative with financing, to get creative with different fees, and how to work that in. I mean, dealerships, I've seen 84-month term. That's insane. I don't know why you would want to get an 84-month term on a car. If you're doing that, you're probably going to be underwater at some point on the car. I highly recommend you do 60 months at most, because anything outside of that, depending on what you put down on the car depreciates immediately when you drive it off the lot. You don't want it going underwater, and that can happen. And basically what I mean by underwater, you owe more on the car than it's worth, if you didn't know that. I highly recommend that you're only talking about the real cash value. I want to pay $27,000 for this car. That's the real cash value. You really need to get a sheet of paper and say, I want to pay this much for the car. This is tax. You need to have them write it out on a sheet of paper, because if you look at the sheets that they give you, there's a bunch of wording. There's this page is yellow, this page is pink, this page is blue. It's very confusing, and they do that on purpose, so you really don't know what you're signing off on. When I was buying this car, I wasn't comfortable with the financing terms that they gave me, but they had like walked me. I mean, first of all, I was sitting there for 4 hours negotiating on this car. It's so ridiculous. And it wasn't like we were yelling at each other or anything like that, but you know, the salesman's sitting there texting on his phone, and I'm like, hey, look, this is not right. This is not what I said. You have to go through it all. So eventually I flipped the paper over and I wrote, here's the real cash value. This is what I want to pay for this car. I ended up getting the deal. I got it for, I think, $29,300. Now, I know I said the online value of the car was the $28,815, but they had to pay the other dealership a little bit to get the car transferred over. But I was okay with that because I hated that other dealership that much. But what I'm trying to say is, you need to stick to the value of the car. That's how you're going to get the best deal on the car. So you need to do the paperwork, the math at home to know, hey, if this is the money I'm comfortable with, this is what it's going to break down over that period of time. And you have to factor in the taxes, any other fees that may go along with purchasing that car, just so you're aware of what it's going to cost you. So I would just say stick to that value. Do not let them talk you into what you want your payment to be, the actual cash value of the car. Now, the real danger in a dealership is the finance office. This guy is, as you know, I'm sure you've watched plenty of videos before this one on negotiating, but this guy is probably the best salesman in the whole dealership. He acts like he's your friend. You think the negotiation's over. Here he comes, shaking hands. How we doing? How's the baby? How you doing? Huh? Well, let's talk. Cheeseburger, hamburger? You know, he acts like he's the man. And he's real smooth with his paperwork and his nice dress shoes, and he's all slick, and he gets paid big time. You need to go in there understanding that he is going to continue to extract as much cash as possible out of your pocket. For example, he's going to try to sell you an extended warranty with the car. Now, this is not a bad thing. Extended warranties are great for the car. It gives you more peace of mind over the lifetime of the car, and sometimes it can come at a great value to you later down the road when something major goes wrong and it's covered. What you need to know is they're going to start way up here with what that's going to cost, and immediately will drop it all the way down here. So if you're interested in keeping that car for a really long time, you probably should get an extended warranty for it, or if you have a trusted mechanic or something like that, I would stick with that. But you can get him to drop that price like crazy. Show him you're interested in it, but tell him what you're willing to pay for it, and if he's not going to come down to it, don't bother. But he is going to continue to try to get you to pay more. Another interesting thing that happened to me is my interest rate was going to be 4.99% financing through Ford, which initially is what I did. And I was really upset with that interest rate because my credit is excellent, I guess it would be considered. It's in the 800s. So getting 5% for me was high, and I wanted to finance through a different medium. I ended up financing through State Farm, which I'm still doing, and my interest rate through them is 2.5%. He told me that I have to finance through them with them for 6 months, and it just didn't make any sense to me. So I called State Farm to finance through them, and they were like, no, that's not true. So I made one payment through Ford Financial, and then went all the way, put everything else through State Farm immediately. So I just wouldn't trust him with saying things like that. I got a much better interest rate and saved myself over $1,000 over the lifetime of the loan. So that too, yeah, I turned the AC off because it was vibrating, because I have the upgraded motor mount here. So the NVH was making it vibrate. So now I'm suffering for you. So that's why I'm sweating. It's also 104 outside. Just be very careful. He's continuing to pull money out of you. I hope all of that advice helps you. And really, the best thing I can tell you is, if you're not comfortable with the deal that the dealership is giving you, walk out and wait and think about it. Because listen, the car is going to be there that you want. Maybe it goes to the used market, and then you saved all that money on depreciation and everything like that. So don't make an emotional decision, make a smart financial decision on your car. When you sit down in the car, you test drive the car, you touch it, you feel it, you look at it, it's great, you picture yourself in it, driving around. That's what they want you to feel. They want you to make an emotional decision and a bad financial decision. So if it doesn't feel right, leave and go home and think about it. Give it 24 hours. See how you feel the next day. If you still want it, go back and try and get it again. Don't let them win easily. In the long run, if you made a smart decision and you're happy with it and you feel good and have no buyer's remorse, you're going to feel good or better over the lifetime of the car, and you're probably going to get a better deal on it. So I hope that helps you. That's my best advice I can give you. And if you have any other questions, anything that I didn't miss, that I didn't hit on, leave it in the comments below and I'll be glad to help out. But really appreciate the support on the channel. Again, we just cleared 4,000 subscribers, so that's really exciting for me. If you're still with me, please like the video. That really helps. Comment and subscribe. So thank you for watching, and we'll see you soon.